Hey, how you doing today? I'm going to cover something today that you've been asking about for a long time. It just hasn't worked out until right now. I'm going to show you how one man can make feed for 5,000 pigs and still have time to do other stuff as well. What we have back here in the corner is a roller grinder mill. This actually takes the whole kernels of corn and grinds them into something that the pigs can digest really easily. So the corn comes in from a bin outside, up this auger, down into this hopper, and that's where the proximity sensors are that tell the mill whether it needs to call for more corn or not. This auger will come on automatically to keep this hopper full when the mill is running. It's got a screen on top that kind of knocks the cobs out, drops them down into a garbage can here. It also has a magnet right in here so that if there's any hardware, bolts or anything that are going to destroy the rollers when they come through, those will get hung up on that magnet. Then the corn comes down and passes through the top set of rollers. It goes in between them and then goes in between the bottom set of rollers. Now these rollers are positioned pretty close to each other. The top ones are a little further apart than the bottom ones. So once the corn is ground up by the rollers, it drops down into the bottom, into this flexible auger, goes out the side of the building, and there's a bulk bin outside. Okay, so here's where that flexible auger comes out through the side of the building and up to the top of this bulk bin. And this holds about 20,000 pounds of ground corn. There's another proximity sensor right there on the side of the bin, so we can start the mill up and walk away from it, let it grind that bin full of corn, and then once it's full, shuts off on its own. So right next to the ground corn bin, we have our premix bin, then we have our soybean meal bin, and our distiller's bin. Let's go take a look at what each of these ingredients looks like, then we'll get making feed. So this is what we call our premix, or some people would call it base mix. This is the first thing that goes into the blender, and this has all the vitamins and minerals that the pigs might not be able to get from the corn and the soybean meal and the distillers that we're putting in the feed. Just like you and I, the pigs need to have all the correct vitamins and minerals to grow properly and to stay healthy. So this is what I refer to as distillers, which is short for dried distillers grains. This comes from the ethanol plant as a byproduct after they've ran the corn through and made ethanol out of it. This is what's left of the solid part of the corn. It makes a really good feed ingredient. It's got a good amount of protein in it. This right here is what the soybean meal looks like. You can definitely tell that it's the same color as the soybeans. And this is the main source of protein in the pig's diet. Now this is what the corn looks like after it's been run through the roller mill. As you can see, it's just sized a lot smaller, makes it a lot easier to eat and a lot easier to digest. We need to be able to weigh the ingredients as we're putting them into the blender. So the blender has stationary scale bars underneath each corner. Now this may just look like a scale display that shows me how much weight I have in the blender at any given moment, but it's also a little computer that keeps track of all the different recipes, the proportions of ingredients that we need to put in for each different age group of pigs. And it also keeps track of which barn I'm hauling each batch of feed to so that I can put all that data on the computer to analyze later. These cattle ear tags that I've got laying here on the desk represent the bins that we need to put feed in today. Marty, stop talking. So we have to mix and deliver feed to 5,000 pigs at 2 different sites in 6 different barns with 30 feed bins. So to keep track of that, we keep these cattle tags on each bin with a binder clip. Then when we're checking the bins in the morning to see which bins need feed, we just grab the tag off that bin, bring it back to the office, and then put it back on the bin when we dump the feed. It's a pretty good system. So this sheet right here represents all of the feed that this group of pigs is going to eat from the day that they come into the barn to the day that they go out as market hogs. Right across the top, you can see the different rations. And when we get into the finisher phase, the rations are all based on the weight range of the pigs that we're feeding. These pigs are just gonna finish up today with their last couple batches of the 135 to 180 pound ration. So when I refer to rations or recipes, what I'm talking about is the specific blend of ingredients that we give to a group of pigs based on their age range and weight. As these pigs grow up and develop, their nutrient requirements change. They eat more feed. They need a little bit less protein the bigger and bigger they get because they're taking in more feed. So the protein level is really high at the beginning when they're babies, and it's quite a bit lower at the end when we're finishing them out. And we mainly accomplish that by lowering the rate of bean meal and increasing the rate of corn as the pigs get older. So let's get started. First thing we do is just hit load. And then we'll go ahead and scroll down to that ration that we want to make. In fact, it actually was already on the right ration. Hit the enter key, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing this batch, and it tells me exactly how much of each ingredient I need to put in. First thing we're gonna do, 150 pounds of base mix. So all these augers just come right through the wall here, and they have tubes coming right down into the hopper here on the auger of the blender. So you can see the premix coming in right now. We've got a progress bar on the scale right here that shows how close we are to the proper weight. All right, there's 150 pounds, so we just hit next and move on to the next ingredient. The next thing we need is 600 pounds of distillers. Turn on the distillers auger, turn on the blender hopper auger, turn on the blender, and away we go. Next up, 870 pounds of bean meal. Next up, 4,380 pounds of ground corn. All right, so we've got our 3-ton batch in the mixer. It's already blending up right now. We'll go ahead and start our high-tech timer. Okay, so it's all mixed up and ready to dump. So you just come down to this end, pull down on this handle to raise the door, fire up the auger, and we're loading the truck. So it's easy to figure out how the feed gets mixed up in there. It just tumbles around like a giant clothes dryer until it's all blended together. But the trick is how you get this thing empty with the auger up here in the center. You can see those paddles that are bolted onto the bottom end of the mixer. As it's rotating clockwise, it scoops up feed out of the bottom corner and then dumps it into the top of the auger tube, and then it follows the auger up and out into the truck auger. Okay, I went ahead and made the last 2 batches of feed. So we've got 3 6,000 pound batches of feed on the truck, 9 tons altogether. We'll go ahead and roll the lid shut and head out to the hog barns. So we use a binder clip to clip these ear tags above the door handle on each compartment so we can keep track of which type of feed we've got in which part of the truck. So these bins just have a chain that hangs down. You pull that chain and it opens the lid. Now this was a pretty easy feed day. Since there was only 4 batches to make, we never even had to start the mill while we were making feed to keep up with the ground corn. So now that we're done for the day, I'll go ahead and start the mill and it'll run until that bin is full out back and shut itself down automatically. So once the feed is in the bulk bins outside the barn, it comes in through the wall through this flexible auger that's hanging from the ceiling, drops down into the feeders, and then the pigs will spin this spinner with their nose to get feed to come out onto the feed pan. Now as this first feeder gets full and fills up the tube all the way up to the auger, the feed just progresses on the line down to the next feeder. Now the last feeder in line has the drive motor up here that runs the auger, and then underneath the drive motor is this halo sensor. As soon as the feed piles up high enough to get inside of this halo sensor, it shuts down the feed motor. And then once the pigs eat feed and the level drops below the sensor has a timer on it, and we get to decide how long we want it to wait before it starts up the feed system again. So there you go. It's just that easy for one man to make all the feed for 5,000 pigs and still have enough time to get other things done around the farm as well. If you have any questions, drop them right down here in the comments section. I'll either answer them in the comments or I'll try to answer them in an upcoming video. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next time.
Believing in better is a mindset to pursue excellence in everything you do. It's welcoming opportunities to improve your farm and knowing that your best season is simply a starting point for this season. Precision planting is for farmers like you who believe in better.